Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Al Bob. And here we are, zero minus time. And what does that mean? Oh, it means time is irrelevant, time doesn't exist, time is an illusion, and zero is a point where you start, right? So every moment you have, you're starting at zero. But because we are so stuck in our thoughts, we just think about what happened yesterday, which doesn't exist. That mean thing that so and so said to me 2 weeks ago doesn't exist. Um, all of the above, right? And preconceived notion. People go on about how Gaza, it's they're all Islamics and they want to kill us all. No, sorry, about 30% of them are Christian. Another 20% or something else, and the 40 to 50% of Muslims are they're not Islamic terrorists. They just want to get along, and someone was going on about how you know uh, let's see. Oh, thank you for putting it in. Howdy, Al. Cool. The spirit world allowed me to catch you. Yes, thank you. Yes, the spirit world is always with us, and if we live in the spirit world, um, you know, that's really the place to be, right? Because from the spirit world, you can take it into your material, and then you can be informed, right? And that's why I like the Stan Lee Doctor Strange, and especially the film they made, the first one of Doctor Strange with Cumberbatch, and he's a good actor. And so you basically have him being this really amazing surgeon, gets a car crash, he's fine. He doesn't die. He's not like, in a respirator, is not crapping through a bag. He's walking around. He could play tennis, but he's not doing, brain surgery anymore. So the he can't he has to push through it, right? His ego won't settle, right? So he ends up meets this guy, and this guy came to him to try and fix him, and he couldn't. And this guy goes off to the east and finds a great master, the eternal, and he basically learns how to use energetic, spiritual energy to heal himself. But he lives in the moment to moment to moment. He is healing those nerves that were cut, and the blah 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 blah, and so he can play basketball. But he doesn't do anything more than just to get his normal life back, right? So Doctor Strange goes there and meets the Eternal, and she, it, truly, you don't know what this person's gender is. Pretty much, I know the actress who played the role, so but she does a great job, and she is like a Sith Lord, meaning she serves the light and love of spirit, but the dark side, which exists as much as the light side, she uses that energy to keep the nasty things at bay. And people don't realize there are many dimensions, and we live in all these different dimensions. I mean, there's a lot of me's all over these dimensions, right? And when I go to sleep, so most people, so what happens to you when you go to sleep? Are you your thoughts when you sleep, or are you your spirit? See, in thine it is said, uh, Moses studied the truth, or he was aware with the angels and his teachers, and can relate So much comes to me from high, right? Yeah, Jah love. Yeah. So, when we say Jah, beloved Father, you know, God does not have a gender, you know, but it shows that element of respect, right? And Mother Earth. So, when this last Sunday, when I was at Bible studies and monotheistic, the lessons about how we have to obey God, right? And the Ten Commandments and all the other thing, blah, 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 right? And I said, what about Sermon on the Mount? And he goes, what are you talking about? And he goes, I said, Sermon on the Mount. Jesus Christ, that's where we got the Our Father prayer, and basically that's where Jesus was signing his death certificate, because he's saying we don't need, before Moses, there were no rules, everyone was like going off the rails. So we got 10 commandments, and then 1800 years of the 10 commandments, and basically we now have 300,000 rules that if you don't, if the rabbi or the Pharisee or any of those other officers of the temple get upset, you can get stoned, right? So, that first, first person who hasn't sinned, throw the first stone, right? So, um, that's why, I brought that up, right? And so he's like, huh. And he couldn't pronounce the term monotheistic. Now I can barely pronounce it because I have no teeth, and my tongue is tied since I was born. So I explained to him that monotheism is, we think because of in Latin that means one God. It is what Jay just said there, right? Jah, Jah is love, right? So monotheism is one love. And within all religions, there is one love. Even the pagans had Gaia, which was one love, Buddha, right? One love. Islam, Allah, one love. Allah Akbar, all of the above. One love, right? And so that is where reality exists. All this other stuff, right? And so we're going to have this presidential debate, which is, I mean, if people can't see that what's going on in the world is totally, totally scripted. The war in Ukraine, totally scripted. Vladimir had, and it's the war of the two Vlads, right? Vladimir, the Russian, who was in Moscow when the Iron Curtain fell down, and he called for the tanks, and they said they're not showing up. He went back to his hometown and became a bagman for the mayor there, a fixer. He was like Michael Cohen, right? And so that's Vlad, bagman. So, you know, Mikhail Gorbachev did what he did to save the Soviet Union, right? Cut all that great expense of Star Wars and all that stuff to keep up with America. He could keep that. But the guy who destroyed the Soviet Union wasn't Ronald Reagan. It was the drunk Russian, what's his name? And so he was president of Russia because that's all he wanted to be. So he kind of destroyed the Soviet Union so Russia could be singular. And then he, his incompetence, his alcoholism, he was Bill Clinton's best friend. They were buds, bro boys. And I forget his name, but Vlad was brought in to be his fixer, right? And so it got to the point that the drunk had so many heart attacks, one after another. They said, I have had it. And he had a lot of money in Switzerland. So he was just getting out of town with his wife and his girlfriends and his kids and go hang out at his nice retreat up there. So Vlad, was the interim guy, and then he became president, right? And Bill Clinton's still president. And he goes, I just want to join the EU and I just want to join NATO. And Bill Clinton went all the way to Russia and said, listen, Vlad, I'll tell you this because, I want to be straight with you, buddy. That's never going to happen because we need you as our loyal opposition. So we're going to funnel you a lot of money. You're going to be one of the richest people on the planet, most powerful. But you have to be the sock puppet boogeyman, right? And that's what Vladimir has been ever since. So he had 20 years. Jim what's it Baker said, not 1 inch. Had George H. Bush said not 1 inch, and then all of those countries became first part of EU and then NATO, and Vlad said nothing, really nothing. And then he did his own little few things around his neighborhood, and we said nothing. And then he put all these people on the border of um, Ukraine, and then in 2014, they had that agreement, which if they just lived by that agreement, everything went fine. But neither side did it by the agreement. And then they had the Orange Revolution in Ukraine, which was a scam, and that was the start off of this soap opera that we've been having for the last since whenever that was, at least 10 years. And they've been having a little war over there on the Donbass, and people been dying, and all that was you know Ukraine and NATO were sussing out Russia's capabilities, right? And so you know they took about 70,000 best of Ukrainian soldiers, took them into NATO, took them to the United States, and trained them up to NATO spec, and give them all javelins, right, and a few other weapons. And so when Russia came in, Russia, they let them just kind of zip in right up to the front door of the capital, and then the Russians ran out of gas, and they didn't bring enough food to make tomorrow's lunch, and so everyone was like, "Huh?" And then the guys who were the sharp point of the spear started taking out, big, long 20-mile line of tanks and armored personnel carriers. They blow up the ones at the end and the ones at the beginning, so the guys can't go anywhere. And so the guys run back to Russia, leaving more tanks and armored personnel carriers than Ukraine had to begin the war. Russia gave them like twice as much, right? And a whole bunch of other stuff, right? And Russia proceeded to do the same thing, really stupid stuff, right? So basically, now 2 years later, Russia has sharpens its pencil, and it's better a military thing, but it is not the big scary monster, right? So, I mean, look, they got the second largest air force, so why aren't they just obliterating Ukraine? Are they being nice? No, they can't, right? And so we have just given Ukraine a trough of new weapons. Um, they gave them the ATACMS, they gave them the small diameter missile, which are meaning that's a misnomer of a name. But what it does, you fire both those things out of artillery, and they fly, 60 to 90 kilometers. That's a good deal of distance, and can hit something the size of a card table with that kind of accuracy, right? So, and the zero diameter missile has little wings, so it can do this. The other one is an artillery shell that has you can tell where it's going to hit. This thing is like zipping around, and you can't quite do it. So anyway, they have now the stuff to hit uh, everything in Crimea, the air bases, the naval bases, and take that bridge out. Right? They can do that. And they've been doing a nice little job of doing that, right? They've taken out some really interesting stuff. They took out Russia has, just like we have GPS, Russia has that, but not as, they don't have the stations all over the planet like we do. They got a few here and there. And one of the nodes was in Crimea. They took that out. That lowered Russia's ability to do GPS firing of missiles and artillery shells and such, and also other electronic dynamics. So anyway, but Russia's basically allowing this to happen. Russia, if they had just prepared when they first went in and gave everyone enough sandwiches and brought a few trucks with gasoline, they would have had the place. But that's not part of the script. And so this is all supposed to go on to the point. So now NATO has trained up about enough pilots and technicians to run 300 F-16s. And NATO is going to give um, Ukraine about, and these are at tranches, meaning they'll give them 100 F-16s like that, and they will have the pilots and the technicians to keep those things up, and they will have another 200 back there in Poland and Lithuania to go because they're giving, the 10-year-old version of the F-16. So, and the F-16, just look what Israel is doing with the F-16, obliterating. So, and Ukraine is pretty tricky dudes, and they have really gotten to the art of drones, and so they're hitting stuff all over Russia. Oh, are they coming up here? Could be, maybe. Are they going down? I hope they keep going and not come up here, because then I have to end the show. Yeah, they're going. So there's a kid. He's like a junior in high school, and he's the boyfriend of the neighbor's daughter. Who's they've been here 3 years, and she's gone through 18 boyfriends, and and she just loves like to embarrass him. Like she was drawing on this kid's face with a magic marker, right? And like doodly things all over his face, and just so he can get kissed and sucked and hugged, he'll let her do anything to him. It's like she goes, "I wonder what you'd look like with face tattoos," right? And a guy lets him do that. It's like mind freaking oblivion. Sounds like he's at my in my neighborhood. With all these leaves, I can't see. Ah! Ooh! Oh, coming back up. Maybe that's not the kid. Who is that? I'll be back. You just look at the wall. Yeah! 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 Yo! I'm up here! Yo! Come on up! That's my buddy. I gotta go. Catch you later.